Hey guys, it's Nat from Nat's Numbers. So happy to see you again. I'm doing this video today on the number 11. We're in an 11 universal month, December 2015, but this video is for anybody who wants to learn how to extract the magic out of this potent number, the archetype of the psychic pathfinder. So, how many of us would pay a pretty penny if we could have access to a treasure map like from Goonies that would lead us to our next dream? Man, wouldn't that be amazing? But that's precisely what the 11 sort of dishes up for all of us. Your intuition's volume under the auspices of the 11 shows up. It gets turned up to the max. But you have to learn how to leverage it because it is really an art. You have to be trained in utilizing your intuition and know what to do to be able to access it. Now, lucky for us, we are not the first humans to have ever existed, and there's some amazing heroes from the past. One that comes to mind who really represented the psychic pathfinder of the 11 was named Mao. And I cannot pronounce his last name. I'll post it below. But he was this Micronesian navigator and a teacher of non-instrument navigation and deep sea voyaging. He was a wayfinder. Wayfinders are people who can take us from where we are to where we want to go in what seems to be incredibly supernatural ways. Now, when the Europeans came upon Mao's Polynesian ancestors, they couldn't believe it. They were dumbfounded. They saw these indigenous and what they might have even deemed basic people on these remote islands in the South Pacific. And they couldn't understand, how did these people in these small wooden canoes without no instruments and no maps, how were they able to navigate and survive on the open ocean? The Europeans had just figured it out, and they had with them humongous ships, tons of storage, maps, and instruments of all kinds. But that's precisely what Mao's people had done. The wayfarers knew how to become sensitive instruments themselves. They navigated thousands of miles of open ocean with nothing but their perception. And Mao had been taught by his elders to do that as well. It was said that he could sense land hundreds of miles away just by looking at the stars, the sun, or he could be lying down in his wooden canoe half asleep and just feeling the swells of the ocean, he could sense it. He knew what direction to go in. It reminds me of this story. A couple years back, my daughter and I went to go visit my dad on the coast, and we were about, according to Google Maps, about 5 hours inland. So when I got directions, being the number 8 competitor that I am, I thought, I'm going to shave an hour off of our trip. So I see this like really crazy windy road that would link us and sort of bypass all of this other traveling time. So I decided to take this weird route. Half hour in, it's beautiful. 45 minutes in, this is like Texas Chainsaw Massacre backwoods country. It reminded me of my dark days where, the land and territory that I used to go with my drug dealer to get drugs, and where people live who don't want to be found, where people are suspicious of humankind in general, especially ones that are driving a Prius. So my daughter turns to me and she says, Mom, are we lost? I said, no. As I'm passing tree stumps that have bullet holes in them. And so I tell Cami, I'm like, listen, you be my co-pilot, pretend that because the road was getting so windy and so narrow and was suddenly becoming more dirt than paved, I was like, tell me when to slow down and speed up and do hard left and hard right. I was trying to distract her. So she's playing this game with me as I'm trying to figure out, what am I going to do? Because I'm so far in that if I don't turn back soon, I'm not going to have enough fuel to get back to civilization. And I have this story that pops up into my mind. I'm sort of this aeronautics nerd, and I remember the story of Charles Lindbergh. He would roll down his window of his airplane. Now, you guys got to understand that in that time, when these pilots were doing the transatlantic journey, The best navigators and pilots were dropping like flies. They were leaving New York and never to be found again. And so why would Charles Lindbergh roll down his windows and risk decreased speed and decreased efficiency on a journey that all of his expert colleagues were dying from? Well, Charles said that rolling down the windows was a way for him to feel the journey. It was a way for him to open up his perception. So I figured if it worked for Lindbergh, maybe it could work for me. So I rolled down the windows. About 5 minutes, the air changes. The temperature drops just slightly. I give myself another 5 miles. I start to see eucalyptus trees. I give myself another 5 miles. And then it hits me. I can smell the salt. It's subtle. It's like barely there, but it's undeniable. I smelled the ocean way before I saw it. The trees start to become more sparse. There's sort of these long, beautiful declines on the road. And then after about 15 minutes, there in the distance, I see her. I see the ocean. If I hadn't rolled down the windows, if I hadn't opened myself up to perceive and feel and sense, I would have turned back. So, this is what Mao talks about. He talks about the importance of keeping your heart open. He says, Noah Thompson, one of Mao's famous students, says of Mao, Mao always said that for him, maybe his eyes were closed, but inside here, inside your heart, you are always awake. And that was one of his secrets, to be this amazingly perceptive wayfinder. So, how can you receive these life-transforming messages of the 11? How can you access your treasure map? Well, number one, you got to know where you want to go. And this is important. A lot of us, one of the biggest mistakes that I see people make that I work with is we misinterpret our intuition for our North Star. Our intuition is a tool, it's not a destination. If I had just used my intuition, if I had just rolled down the windows, but I didn't know where I was going, I might still be roaming around in the forest of Northern California. Knowing your destination is pretty important. So that's the first step, knowing what you want. And then the second step is to roll down the windows, to become a sensitive instrument. You got to open yourself up. You got to open. You can even visualize it, Are you a wall or are you a doorway? Is your heart armored and hard, or is it soft and receptive? This is why meditating and taking quiet time is associated with heightened miracles and instant manifestation with the 11, is because if you can just take time to soften your edges, to sense and feel what's going on within you and around you, amazing things happen. So here's my assignment for you guys. It's been working miracles for me and my clients, and it's just simply the open heart exercise. I want you to notice how many times in the day you close your heart and you can feel it. It's visceral. You feel hard. You feel cut off, detached, disconnected from what's going on around you. You feel judgy. You feel negative. You may even feel angry. But when you open up your heart, there's a softness. There's a love. There's kind of a blur. And your sensations heighten. So, practice opening up your heart and see what the 11, your inner psychic pathfinder, where it directs you and what information you gather. Will you guys let me know how that goes? Let's support each other in this cool experiment. I'll talk with you guys later. Can't wait to see you in the next video.